Welcome back to the madhouse. Now, today I'm going to do a bit of hand forming. As you can see, we have a bit of rot here and so this is a 67 Beetle Elvis. So I'm going to show you how to do, so we've got a patch here which is curved, and how to repair a patch like this with just your hands and, well, obviously tools, but so anyway, first of things first, because this panel here is perfect and this panel here is perfect apart from this lump which I'll tap out, I'm going to hold this piece here and down here. I'll do them separately, but we'll just focus on this curved piece, which is quite simple to do. So first off, because it's hard to see where you're cutting without any distinctive markings, just get a pen and we'll cut out however much we need to. So I'm going to cut on the line. That's going to be the easiest way. As soon as you cut out anything more on either side, then you've got to start using extra tools to get that proper thing. But basically, essentially, we're cutting out a flat sheet, and then we're gonna form it and then cut it out with our hands. Not cut it with our hands, shape it with our hands. You'll understand what I mean. Right, it's marked. So what I'll do is, I'm gonna actually see what looks like a mount hole that's too far. So get a hammer and see if we can tap that out. Safety specs, of course, yellow tinted because it helps you see things a bit better in a darker shed. Earmuffs, and of course gloves. Right, so let's just get this cut and move on to the next stage. Another thing to be wary of, if you're cutting too much out, you might find that this, once it's cut out, this is no longer supported by this piece and it's going to sink down. So you've got to think about that when you're putting the other patch in. But we'll get to that. Three sides. As you can see, well, you probably can't see, but as soon as I started cutting this here, it's actually sunken in a bit, so we know straight away that we're going to have to do some leveling out on this flat area, because it's gonna want to sink down because it's unsupported. Try your best to use both hands to keep it steady, especially you've got especially on this curve here, because the grinders are going to want to go all over the place. So right. And there you go. So as you can see, a bit rotted out, and it's all that inner is all got surface rust. So first thing we'll do is fortunately there's no, unless you take the whole panel off, strip everything back, there's no way of perfectly getting all these inner pieces. So the best thing to do is getting what you can. And for that, I'll use some rust converter. Which will definitely help. Just, I won't show any brands, but it's pretty obvious where that is. Oh, whoops. Oh, what? Super cheap. What? This stuff's getting harder and harder to find, so Super Cheap's one of the only regular places that sells rust converter that's accessible to a lot of people. So I'm just coating as much as I can. The more the better, really. Just keep spraying it in there and getting the getting an air hose and doing the old spray and jetting it further up the sill. Right. Awesome. Right. Now, so what we need to do is, because these are probably should move it back so you can actually see. Because these are spot welded on, because we don't use a spot welder, we're just going to use a normal welder. So basically I'll be taking these off and then welding them around the outside on the repair piece. So, but we need to get this shape first. So as you can see, it's got a slight curve like that, obviously because it goes up, but it's also got that curve. Now, easiest way to do this, oh goof, excuse the mess. Right, let's look straight down. Oh, this is okay. Right, here we have some sheet metal. So you basically, obviously this has also got some surface rust, but that'll all be treated. So while using the least amount of steel as possible, because it's an awkward shape, just find the closest there. Simple. Now, get yourself a pen. Ugh. Make sure the entire panel is surrounded by the steel. And just going around the outside. You always want to be cutting it bigger because it allows for... Yeah. So we know that if it's cut like that, that means this side is going to be the outside, and so this piece, this side here, will be the back of it. Now, what we have to do now, first of all, I'll mention this. If you've got this, sort of works on any combi or any Beetle or any repair piece really that you cut out that's flat. If it's got a curve in it, whether it goes up and down, around, this method is going to work. I've measured exactly where these sit here so that you can drill out the repair piece. So just measure about halfway. Don't need a ruler really. Now, a good way of doing this, measuring which way up and down it goes, if you get sit it flat, get it about halfway on each thing. It didn't work because I didn't have enough thing there, but this will do. Because the hole drilled out is bigger than the hole there, you don't have to really worry too much about that, just as long as you've got it very close. Right, halfway there. Oh well, let's just, for video's sake and accuracy, we'll measure the outside rim to there, to the end of the piece. It's 8mm. Count for the thickness. Right, it's 10 exactly. So I know that when I cut this out, as long as I stick to this line, it will, I've got to measure 10 from up there, and that's the position. So then you do the same for this side. So there, up to the line that you cut, and that is 5, 6, 7, 8. Right. Right, now we cut. So I would recommend definitely putting it on a flat board in its own. If you've got a welding table or even just a table, you can have this and have the panel clamped down on somewhere, but because I am, for this video's sake, I'll just do the cut. Wear your gloves. Can't recommend that enough. You're cutting on the outside of the line as well. Don't forget that. Make sure you mark it on the inside as well, so that you can actually see where the piece goes. Right. Another helpful tip, handy, if you've got to cut a shape out that is very tight, don't go through the whole sheet metal at once. Just, yeah, basically do the initial skim, like that. So say you have to cut through that and then do several passes going further and further down, because if you try and cut through all the way on a tight thing, you're going to snap your disc and it's going to go into your hands or your eyes or any. And a cutting disc that is spinning at 12,000 RPM, if it suddenly splits apart, you're going to know about it. I'm not going to show you what it's like for one to shatter, because I might do that one day. Show you what to do, or how not to grind something. Right. After you've cut out a piece like this, don't touch it with your hands, because it's generally extremely hot and you will burn yourself. So now we will remove these inner, I'll remember it. Nope. Okay. So we know here it's drilled in at 3 points. We're not going to drill through that, obviously, because if you look close enough, we'll drill on the outer surface, but if you look close enough, you should be able to see. So you can see the indent press if you look on the other side. That's all right. Right. So you can either drill through that and be done with it, or you can just Cool. Ignore that. What I like to use a belt sander. And just sand through the outer skin until you get through that, and it goes. You can. see if that's enough. There we go. Yeah. So in the event that these are also rotted out, the best thing to do is get a, because these are M8 bolts, you can get just a nut like so, and then yeah, get the nut and put it on the back, drill a hole that's not too big, and you can put it on the back of that, and then that makes it good, like so. And if you want that loop, you can just get a washer and weld the washer to the outside of this nut, and then weld the washer to the back of the plate. So I'll quickly do that with this other side, and then we will move on to the next stage. Little spot welder, you can do the same thing as this, so drill through there, drill through these tiny holes here, and then spot weld it back onto this plate. But we don't do that, we don't have one here, so we'll just do a few tacks around the outside, and that'll keep it in place for when you're drilling the bolts through. Right, do this. Make sure that's the right bit there. That's good. So we'll go 8mm in. Mark that out. And 10mm here. Right, so that's where they sit. Obviously it's looking very scruffy now because you've got to clean it. Oh, I may as well clean up around the edges. So you can use either a deburring tool or a roll lock or a sander, or if you don't want to do that, you can always have the cutting disc. Do not recommend doing this though, because you're holding it on an angle. Basically, any sideways pressure you put on these discs is that there's a chance that it will break. Although they do have a little bit of flex, definitely when they're spinning that fast, I would not recommend doing that. Right, we know where we go now. So we mark the center. Because the hole we're drilling is bigger than this hole here, then if you really wanted to, it's not too wouldn't be too worrying to do that, but I guess if you wanted to have the oval hole like the factory, then I mean I don't see a need in that, but right, you could do that. But alright, so we're drilling holes now. So you want it to be obviously less than the outside, less than the diameter of this here, and greater than the inside. So we'll do a quick normally I wouldn't do this, but here are some calipers. So let's look at the diameter of this. So it's about 8 mil. Obviously, because it's a 8 mil bolt, and the width of this is about 26. So, right, battery died. What was I doing again? Oh yes, got to drill the holes out for the captive nut. Captive. I remembered. Thanks, Dad. Right. Now let's do some drilling. So we want it to be, I can't remember whether it was 20, 21. So we want it to be bigger than 8 and less than 20. Let's just say that. So here is a step drill. Probably won't be able to see this too well, but I'm just going to drill a hole right in the middle. That'll do. And we'll go up to probably about 14. What is this size here? Um, 12. I think that's good. So as you can see, it's got plenty of space there. That's exactly where it needs to be, so we'll leave it at that for now. So that's 12 mil that hole. So I could do the same for the other side. But generally I'd get like a punch right in the middle, but it's too far away, so let's just double check that. That's good. Right. So we may as well, well, now that we know that it's got to go right in the middle, I will get the belt sander. Oh, well, what we'll do is first, so we know where everything is now, so we know, as you can see, I went on the outside, I put the pen mark on the outside, so this will have to be shaved down. So now that we've done this, what we'll actually do is we'll do our first test fit. So, oh, right, the original one. Make sure that we've got it in the right one. That's good, so that's where it needs to go. So, because this is the outside, this should be the correct. Right, so now, as you can see, this panel here, this piece here is flat, kind of, and this is curved. So, if you go from corner to corner, you can see that there's quite a bit of a gap there. So this is where you start forming it with your hands. So you're getting, basically, you know it's a gradual curve, so you basically just want to gradually curve it with your hands. You don't want to be putting too much pressure on one area. And if you've gone too far, it's not the end of the world, you just sort of bend it back. Because this is cold rolled 1mm thick sheet metal, it bends very easily, but it's still a good thickness to have. So looking at that, apart from the size being slightly too big, we're getting pretty close there. Needs a bit less curvature here, so bend that back slightly. Just about there. Right. So now that we've confirmed, so I just had a look on this here, because this is still quite tight. I know that it hasn't actually sucked it in, so we obviously didn't cut enough, or didn't cut enough out to affect this outer curve here, which is the most ideal situation. Which means all we have to do is make sure it weld it straight in once the captive nuts are all complete, or all in. So what I'm going to do now is grind this back until I can't see any more pen mark. And then we will do our captive nuts, weld them in, and then we do our prime the back of this. So anyway, let's just do that now. So you can either use the side of a cutting disc or the belt sander. Side of the cutting disc, like I said, is dangerous. Definitely do not recommend, but this is probably the best tool to use, just a belt sander, and you can keep sanding it backwards and forwards so that you can't see any more pen mark. Make sure you wear your safety stuff. Gloves, glasses, and muffs, ear muffs. Just remember, the more you're sanding it, the hotter the metal's going to get. So I would definitely, yeah, the gloves is very important. Right. Yep. So the most important areas to line up are the four corners. Now, because I marked the original piece outside of the cutting, that generally allows for the size of the cutting disc, which is 1 millimeter or 1 to 1.5 millimeters all the way around. So you have to basically remove that. Now I've got it almost all the way there. If I butt it up against the bottom, it's looking good up here. If you can see at the top, still a little bit needs to come off. So I'll get my pen, which is not here. Where are we? Oh, what I'll do. If it's, okay, another thing to realize, if you're getting really specific measurements, if you butt it up against the bottom here and you're like, oh, probably not even looking at the bloody thing. If you get it right on the bottom here and it's like completely level and you realize there's like 2 or 3 millimeters that you need to cut up at the top, because you've cut it to the shape, you have to, instead of cutting off all the gap at the top here, you have to cut off an equal amount on the top and the bottom to keep it central. Because we've cut the hole bigger, it doesn't matter too much, but for the sake of this video, I will do that. I'll cut. So basically, I'm just going to use the belt sander and sand off an equal amount on each side until it fits in between each corner, because I know I've got the curve pretty much correct. I've just got to get the trimmed done. You're better off cutting it too big and then shaving it down little by little until it fits, because if you cut it too small, then you're going to be in for a world of gap filling with weld. is looking good so far. I have realised though, my shape is not completely perfect. If you can get a 1mm gap all the way around, that's good. If not, that's not the end of the world either. Just remember, you definitely don't want to cut off too much. Right. Now there's too much on this outer edge, but that's not so much of a problem, because if we get the inner curve, then the outer will probably need to be shaved a little bit more. If I look at this, seems to be still a few remnants of the... Just remember, this is only surface rust, and it'll all be sanded off first before I weld it in, which I'll show you how to do in a second. Right, that's pretty good. Because there's still a bit of a gap there, a bit more I need to do on this outer edge. Oh, maybe not, hang on. If I twist... Oh, okay, no, we're looking pretty good there. Okay. Now, it's time to get the captive nuts on. So, let's go back into our absolute mess. So I'll basically get this back to bare. And then we'll use, basically I use the grinder, the belt sander around this to get rid of any burrs that may be on there. And for the rest of it that's only got a little bit of surface rust on it, I'm going to use a foam pad that is, well, this one's an old one, but it's 240 to 320, or you can use sandpaper if you want. Just going to rub it until without basically not putting any pressure on it, because you don't want to bend all the, undo all the work you've put into it by getting the correct curve. So You're just lightly sanding it. Definitely recommend a fresh one because this one's getting pretty old. I've done quite a few pieces with it. Right. A bit more of a crust there. Okay. Now we have some shiny metal. Good as new. Just give that a quick wipe on my pants. And now we will get some whoa, because this is going inside the panel, we can access it, as you can see from the gap there. But if you can't access it, that's when you get the copper. Well, I use copper spray because it's good for etch, well, not etch, but it's good for just having a coat of something on it. Especially if you can't access this back panel once it's welded in, you're better off having, that's the piece I made up for the bottom of the pillar on that passenger side. So just put it on a clean place or an open place. Get a bit of this here. Wax and grease remover. That'll get rid of any residue that's on there. So just give it a bit of a clean. And then let that dry off. It only takes a couple of seconds. Right, and then you can use any brand of copper spray if you want. I just like, oh, well, you could even use cold gal spray, but I find if you put too much heat into cold gal spray, it'll oh, that's just some standard brand black gal spray. You can use that, but I find if you put too much heat into it, it peels, it starts peeling. And by a lot of too much heat, I mean like welding heat. But this, instead of burning off, this will just melt sort of into the the metal instead of burning away. There's no perfect way of if you've got a weld, if you can't access this from any place after it's welded in, then this is sort of like the best you can do when it comes to protecting the welding, like most of the metal from corrosion. But there will be exposed metal around the outside of it once it's once it's in there. So something to be mindful about. You've just got to protect it as best you can. The most ideal way to repair something, like let's just, for example, say inside, if you wanted to replace like this piece along here that was rusted out for some reason, you can't, once it's on there, you can't access it. Or you probably could from in there and using like a rust preventative. But say if you couldn't access the back of this, then you basically just want to treat it as best as you can. The only way to have a truly rust-free repair is to basically use like a 2-pack glue, because any weld you put in there is going to eventually rust over time. So, well, I guess even glue, but you know, repairing a piece like that, like this, you're basically giving it an extra 50 years plus of, assuming you do everything correctly, you know, you're giving it a long time. So now that that's, what I'll do now is while that's drying, I will get gonna get these two here, because these are going to be flat up against the repair piece. I'm going to also put copper on these, so just chucking them on there. I'm not going to worry about wax and grease removing this because it's only a very small thing. Unless you've got KSC fingers and you're touching it and everything, you generally, wax and grease remover is well, it should be done, but if you don't do it, it's not the end of the world. So yeah, so I've got that, and I will be back. Well, this is U-Pole Weld number 2. There's different brands you can use. My personal favorite is Finixa. You can, obviously the more copper rich, the better. But it might sound crazy, but you can actually like smell the difference between weld through, like copper weld through primers, and I definitely find the ones with the most copper in it seems to work the best for me anyway. But these are both really good brands, U-Pole and Finixa, so recommend them. But you know, you could use any brand of copper weld through primer you can. So yeah, I'll be back when everything's dry and ready to weld together. Right, day 2. Why did I stop yesterday? I think it was probably because it was like past 5 o'clock and getting dark. And your battery probably died. And the battery ran out and everything. Right. So copper's had plenty of time to cure. What is this? Is this King Gear's live at KEXP or something?
It's live in Luxembourg.
Luxembourg, oh, okay. Right.
Where is Luxembourg?
Well, like Germany.
I'm just testing your geography.
It is in between.
I can't believe you said Germany. Oh my
Oh,
god.
fuck off. Censor that. I don't know. It's fucking south of bloody Netherlands and fucking south
like Belgium,
of
like
Belgium.
Like
fucking in between Belgium and fucking France. I don't know. Do you have to swear? Oh, stop it. It's only because you're around. I was a good boy yesterday with my YouTube videos. Right, so basically I'm just doing that, and that just creates bare metal to tack it in. There we go. Right. centralizing the hole. I'll get a small set of rubbers. Small set of clamps so I can clamp it exactly where it needs to be. A bit less tension. Woo! Woo! Right. So that's exactly where I need to weld it. So you don't need to weld all the way around. It's only a few tacks around the outside to stop the captive nut from spinning around. Bit of a clamp setup. I'm only putting a few tacks on, so I'm not worried about stability. Right. Of course, I shouldn't need to tell you, use glove and helmet when you're welding. Remove any flammable stuff out of the vicinity. And just a couple of tacks on each side. Nice and messy. Clean that up, but as you can see how the paint, the copper is actually melted in there. It hasn't peeled away. So, and looking at that there, that means it's penetrated through. So we are good to go on this side. Really, you don't even need that many tacks. I just thought overkill's better than not enough. Unfortunately, let's get it right in the middle. Right. Now there's a chance it can warp from the heat from the welding, the curve, but it shouldn't Shouldn't make enough of a difference. Right. Check it's penetrated. Yes. She's not going anywhere. Right, I'm gonna let that cool down, and while I'm doing that, we'll get the surrounding metal cleaned up and ready to weld.
Did you cut that patch for me?
I did, it's just outside there. Yep. Alright, I'm just going to use a row lock to sand all this. Oh, get a fresh one. Oh. Early.
Keep on rolling.
Steampunk.
I wonder if that man had blocked us for playing that.
Well, the original, I think the original, it would be the original credit because he uses the same music. It's just the
tell everyone to
different
look it
lyrics.
up.
You've probably already mentioned it before in a previous video. Right, let's get some of this cleared up. Bang, just getting around the outside with back to bare metal. That's loud. Right, that's done. So,
I'll use that there for 1 sec. Can you unclip that?
yeah, what much do you? Right. Now basically it's ready to put in. What I'll do is actually get a coat on, just a coat of the copper over those welds. Might grind them back a bit so it looks a bit neater, and then yeah, I'll be back when that's done. Okay, I'm back. Okay. You can see, ground it back a bit and chuck some copper on it just to make it look pretty. Also did another coat of the rust converter in here because all this is going to get filled with rust preventative, which is not here. That'll all get covered again, so I'm not going to worry about putting any extra coats or anything like that. So see if it still fits. Bad, needs to be a bit more of a curve to it. Right, looking at this, just about there. Right, look like we're still slightly big, so I'm going to do, I'll clean all this side up and Alright. That'll do. Let's get a welder going. Well, it's already going. Alright. Get some bare metal somewhere close nearby. The cleaner the earth, the better it's going to weld. Where is mine? Okay, we'll start on getting this corner and this corner tacked in. Make sure you get a thick tack on there, and as you can see, there's a bit of room to maneuver, so you can get everything lined up properly. And then we'll get this corner in. Basically what I'm doing is using the tip of the nozzle to line it up by eye and then tacking it in the corner. And then looking at that, because this isn't moving too much, I know that that's secure. It does dip down a little bit, so what we're going to do is shave a bit more off this and create a bigger gap. But until then, I'm going to use the lever it out. I'll use the tip of the welder to lever it out, and then tacking it when it's even. One thing you can do, getting a screwdriver to do the initial tack, and if you hold it down evenly on both sides of the metal, you know that it's going to tack a lot more. It's going to tack even anyway. It's good. Now looking at this, looks like it's going to need to be pushed in a little bit to line up with the rest of it, with the corner. Oh. So what happened there was I didn't obviously weld enough onto this piece and it's popped off, but that second one underneath is on there fine. So now that it has been tacked in, I'm gonna do a test on the guards to check the holes line up with the rest of it. So I'll just rip all the it's not something you have to worry about, like, yeah, it's, well, you do have to do it. I guess common mistakes people have made before is getting a piece like that welded in all perfect, and then they've put the guard on and realized that none of the holes don't line up properly or not good enough. So this is just a quick test to make sure. So I'll get myself a guard.
Is it still rolling?
Yeah.
Roll.
Alright, we have a big ass bloody yard. So, looking at this, no,
I can help.
stop. So I'll get this, because this one is a captive bolt. See if I can see it. So get that in there and then let it go. I told you. Yeah, you are. Stop. Right, so looking at that. Ugh. Hard to... No, because you're gonna make it hard. So as you can see, the holes line up with the yeah, the replacement holes line up. So
Good job.
that's all I need.
Good job, son. Good job. You're doing a great job there.
Right. So now we can focus on getting the rest of this welded in.
Son, how good was that show?
Can you stop?
Iron Chef, original SBS.
So, looking at this, we've got, I've got a, so it needs a bit more of a curve there, but instead of taking it out, I'm just gonna stretch it a bit. So just using the weight of the torch to bring it in, suck it in slightly and tacking it. Now that means that there's going to be a slight amount of tension on the whole panel, but once the whole thing's welded in, it becomes a part of the structure. So you don't want to be, you definitely want to get the majority of the shape in before you start tacking it. So as you can see, there's a bit of a large gap there. And I know that this, you probably can't see it, but the cutting that there's a, you can see it's slightly lower, so it has dipped in. So what I've got to do is push this in, which is taking almost no effort at all. And then I've got to bring this out, bring this piece out slightly at the same time. So to do that, I'll get probably gonna run out of sun soon. So you can see, well, you probably can't, but when I move that, it brings this panel out. So I've got to somehow push this in and bring the other one out at the same time. So this is something I'll need 2 hands for. Right, so as you can see I've done there, I've basically using leverage. If I put it in between, just a really tiny screwdriver, if I bring it out, it actually pops it out and sucks it back in and creates a nice gap. Whoa. Make sure that it's clear. So what I'm going to do is, because it doesn't need to come out of that, just start off by getting the angle by eye. And now, so as you can see, well, it's pretty easy to tell whether it's out or in too much. You can see that there needs to be a bit coming off the repair piece, cut off a bit here, and then this also needs to come out slightly. So I use the piece like that. That brings it out level with the rest of the panel. Now, I do this by eye because I guess I'm so used to it. But I guess if you didn't have if you don't have the expertise, if you want to just attempt this, then it's good to have someone there with you to make sure, double check that. So you know, two minds are better than one, as they say, to check whether the panels are coming, whether this could be too far out. It's definitely not on this side because of the minimal movement. You definitely don't have to work as hard to get that.
Can I tell you a little story?
Oh well, you've got a couple.
When I was painting the car, like it's about 30 something years ago down in Warrnambool in Victoria, I was painting for a mate at Kingswood. Wasn't really a mate, just someone I knew. I used to paint cars for like Carton of VB, and I was pretty proud of the job coming up on this Kingswood. I had all the lines nice and everything, considering I was just learning as I was going back then. And then I said, I always knew he looked a bit funny, and I just ignored it because I don't judge. And then he came along. I said, I'll run your eye over this. He had a glass eye and he popped it out and he ran it along the side of the car. I had a mini freak. It was a mini freak out. But he said, that looks good to me, so it didn't matter. So that's a true story. Yeah, just as you were.
Right. Probably about to cut out, it's probably going to run out of memory in a minute. Definitely need to remove more off this. So I will get my tool. One thing you can do, if you find there's too much overlap, you can use a grinder and actually cut a wedge, like cut in between the two pieces of metal. Oh, actually, I'll show you here. So you know that this is 1 millimeter, so that whatever you cut is a 1 millimeter gap, and 1 millimeter is pretty ideal for welding, like MIG welding something in. So bit harder to do when it's curved because the disc obviously automatically things. So that's a little bit wider than 1 mil, but that's still a good gap, because I will show you the difference welding a flat, welding a gapless gap, or a gap like this. So as you can see, when there's a gap there, the weld goes into the metal and then spreads out. And then, but if you put I'll probably cut this off, but where there's no gap, the weld builds on top of the two metals. It doesn't like melt in between. So it's always good to have a little bit of a gap rather than no gap at all. Now I'm gonna probably go, I'll get this trimmed up first.
Good.
Cool. Couple more tacks to seal the deal.
Are you going to TIG it?
Oh, I might.
You should. Oh, everyone's seen all our videos with Megan and stuff on it.
Well, I don't really like. I wouldn't really recommend TIGging this out. Oh well, I'll do it.
TIG's not really.
Just a bit of a
DIY.
tap.
Oh, you should say people how you made that.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna offload some footage off this GoPro because we can't afford giant storage. Because I'm basically being held by gunpoint. I'll be back. Switch to TIG welding the rest of it.
Yeah, show them how it's done.
Show them.
Well, we've done a lot of MIGing on our videos.
Yeah.
So why not show? It's not a how-to TIG, but it's the most beautiful thing to watch. It's like ASMR, but not. And it's just really just it's beautiful form of welding.
Okay, stop.
Okay.
Those who know, if you know, you know that reference. Right, things you need. You obviously need a torch. I'm using a clear cup because I can see a little bit easier.
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
What?
What number cup is that?
16? No, I don't know. So, yes, most people use ceramic. I like the clear. Now, a lot of people like to program their settings on the welder itself with regards to what kind of amperage and power you want. I prefer to use a foot pedal so I can manually control what bloody thing I am, what amperage I'm using. And of course the earth there, I'll turn the gas on.
Is the earth flat?
Can you stop?
That's a great joke.
Right. The most ideal welding conditions, especially for TIG welding, is having fresh metal. So I'm going to get rid of all the rust around the outside, all the started of surface rust. Not with the helmet on though. Let's just put that there. I need safety glasses. I call it the three G's of safety: glasses, gloves, and glare muffs. If you have all three of those,
Also known as guffs.
guffs. I've just knocked down the tack welds just so it allows for a bit more of a comfortable TIG welding experience. And then the last thing I need is filler rod. Now, depending on the size of the gap, you can either go. I think this is 2.4 millimeter, and this is 1.6. Because the gap is fairly consistent all the way around, I'm just going to go the smaller stuff, 1.6. Now, if you TIG weld this straight away, gung-ho, willy-nilly, you will warp this panel. It will 100% warp. There's nothing you can do about that. So basically we do the spot weld and cool technique, except instead of using air, we use I have set the post flow of the argon gas to a couple of seconds after the flame stops, and you'll understand what I mean in a second. Please don't criticize my welding technique because I will cry.
Why did the gas bottle cry? Because all these friends are gone.
Oh, that's why I don't want to make videos with you around. I'm trying to be serious here, somewhat. Totally serial. My gloves gone. Right. So for education purposes only, I'm going to show you, I'm just going to wear the one glove so I can adjust camera and stuff, but essentially putting your foot on, pushing down on your foot creates the circuit and the arc, and it will ignite. So I'm gonna raise this up a bit. I don't even know what this is gonna look like, but give it a go. So I'm only going to be doing more spot welds around the panel until there's more, so that there's more, more strength and more warp prevention.
Do you want me to punch the light in behind you?
Oh. Why is my gas not on?
Okay.
So from that means the gas is on, is not on. So I must have unwound it, but not actually set the gas.
Not actually turn on, yeah.
No, I'll do it.
Okay. I'll do it.
I've set it to about, I don't know what it was, like 12 psi. Something like that. So without the protective gas, this basically it'll just blow holes in it straight away. So let's try with gas now. So basically I'm just tacking on. I've got a contaminated tip right now, but I'll just get some more tacks on before I switch it over. So you can see there how it's pretty much the same color as the metal. That's because it's had ample time to for the gas to cool it down. What happens is it starts, if you don't do that, if you get too much heat into it, it'll start going all rainbow like. I'll show you here. So as you can see, it's got that colouring around it. That's because I took the tip away, then that's why that little point is there. But yeah, that's what happens when excessive heat, and that's how you get those decorative rainbow finishes on metal that people do. That's you gotta put enough heat into it to change the colour. So what I'm doing is just move my way across, getting a few more tacks into it for a bit more strength, stop it from warping. You only want to be doing this when you're certain that there's no more, when you don't have to bend any more panels into shape. So what I'm doing to prevent more warpage is when I push the foot down to strike the arc, I'm holding my TIG, my torch in front of the metal where I'm welding to, just to for a bit of extra heat shielding, because you got to remember these are essentially sheet metal and any warpage is going to affect that. So basically I'm melting the filler rod first and then using the excess heat will melt the filler rod into the metal. The downside to that is if you melt the rod first, there's a chance if you melt the rod first and it doesn't melt into this, it can actually suck it back onto the torch tip and can do more contamination to it.
Nice job, buddy Carla.
Another good thing about using the torch is if you've got a bit more than necessary of the piece you've cut out, so say looking at that there, a bit blurry, but this piece has gone far further than the cut line, you can actually melt them together, and then that reduces the need for filler rod. Right, that's a bit thin there, so...
Supposed to say eyes.
Eyes. Definitely recommend checking out the Fabrication series on YouTube if you want to learn more about welding from people who actually know what they're talking about. Well, who know enough to instruct others on how to do TIG welding stuff, so check him out. Right, so now basically I'm not worried about this inner edge here when it comes to warpage, because this here is solid and there's enough of an angle there that you don't have, it's only this outer edge that you've got to be very watchful. So you don't want to be bridging gaps that big, because this panel is going to start warping. So basically you should be able to like tack weld and cool it down enough with the torch that you can just put your hand straight over it. So that's currently warm but not hot, which is good.
But being a corner edge and curved,
no.
it compared to putting a patch in the middle here,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
a lot less
you'll-
likely to get walkage there. And all
yeah,
of this,
but still,
all
it
of this
will-
is covered by the
but
guard.
This will, yeah, I know. The whole point, like, you don't, yeah. If you do this correctly, you will not see
Shouldn't
it.
matter.
You,
No, that's right.
yeah,
File
well,
finish.
you won't see it, but you generally want to do a decent job
Don't
anyway.
mind file finish.
File finish, okay. Now, one thing you got to fight is the wind.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Close it down.
Blowing all my argon gas away.
You won't have enough light then. Hang on, I'll fix that first. I fixed it. What? You got enough light there?
Yeah.
Full go.
Maybe not for the GoPro, but probably can't even see where I'm welding. Right. So now I'm happy enough. There's enough of a gap there. I reckon I'll start doing some passes now. Oh, just blew a hole. It's fine. Right, the battery was hot and ran out of charge, so now I'm back. I'll put a few more tacks up here just for a bit more strength. So now I'm gonna do a run along the top until I feel like it's a little bit too hot. Just filling the having it low heat, just filling where I blew out. So you can see there how the metal is like grey, which means it's very well cooked. Now if you had this amount of heat up here, it would actually well, you can feel that now, that's really hot. Having that amount up here would cause this panel to start sort of heat shrinking in, so it would start making divots. And so basically having heat here is okay, but yeah, try and keep it off corners that border onto flat panels. After I've welded some, I'll turn I lightly trigger it to so that I can keep the gas flowing. Oops. And what I'm doing is I'm going down, I'm low, having amperage low, and then when I add the filler rod, I put my foot down slightly more to up the amperage, and it sort of levels out, and then I go back to lower amp, lift the foot back up, and it sort of levels itself out. So it allows it to get the filler rod in there, but doesn't get it too hot. Oh, that's what happens when you another blowout right there. It's obviously a bit too much heat and the metal's just so that's a bit warm there. So what I'll do is let it cool down. I'll move to an area up here and do up there. Normal. Then MIG welding. But yeah, TIG welding does put quite a bit more heat into the metal. And especially because you've only got the two hands, you know, you're relying on the gas coming out to cool the metal down, whereas if you have a MIG welder, if you tack something, you can have an air blaster right next to you and just shoot cold air straight on the metal, and it will cool it down quite a bit faster. Alright, so now that that's probably cooled down enough, I'll get this filled up a bit. I've just turned my, basically, oh, let's angle that down. I've got a gauge there, up and down, so that controls, yeah, how much the maximum amps is, and then I use my foot to control the amount from that maximum, so, yeah. I've just touched my, accidentally touched my, my filler rod on the tungsten tip, so it is currently contaminated and it's putting more heat into the metal than it needs to. But I did fill that hole, so that's good. Quickly rip this out, and I just use a belt sander. I just hold it on an angle in a belt sander and like move it in between my fingers, and that sharpens it into a point. The finer the grade you use, the right. So I've basically got 3 sides done, so now it's just this side here. bit too warm there, so I'll grab my air blaster. Give it a cool it down a little bit more. Wherever it's gone. End up cutting out a lot of what I say because it's rambling, but so I can already tell, even from the heat that we've put here, you can tell there's a little bit of a dip forming there. Now, fortunately, it's accessible behind it, so I'm not going to worry about it now because it might shrink again. But this is the risk of putting too much heat into a panel. So yeah, I'll bash. Once this is all fully welded, I'll bash it out so that it's level, but it should be fine. So now I'm going to be welding just in between the two welds. So I'll start off here, I'll probably here, and then I'll move up and then go here to where it's a bit cooler, then go up, and then up through here, and they'll be intermitting the amount of heat that I put everywhere. If I wanted to start here and work all the way up at once, I would have to, I'll do that just to show you. Being extremely careful is so important, and you use a lot of time and a lot of gas doing it this way. But if you can do it correctly, it works quite well. Probably not going to be able to see properly because I'm left-handed, but there needs to be a gap there to create the arc. So with no arc there, it won't trigger, but it will still keep putting gas out. So that's how I normally get extra gas when I need more cooling. Side and then a little bit above this side, and keeping this line consistent all the way through. And then I'll run it on the middle when I'm happy with where the curve is, and that will give it the round, because it's not completely angled, there's a slight curve to it. let's see if I can. Well, basically, there's the that is the repair. Now I'll try and take it off the stand so I can show you. But so as you can probably not see, hang on, let me try and get a. See how there's bare metal there from the welding. So this is where I'm not too stressed because you can access behind there. That can all be painted. But for areas that you can't access, that's about as good as you can get. That gap there is from the this cut here that I also have to weld up for there. So I'll try and see whether it so we've got about here, there's a little bit of a divot which is about right there. So because that's accessible, it's going to be quite easy to tap back out. But this is, but other than that, the rest of the panels looks pretty good. And when to get the that final exact curve on here, that can be. I'm at the point where that can stay like this, and when we put our various epoxy primers and then primer fillers, then the final shape can be shaped out of that. You could spend another few hours like getting perfect, but realistically, unless you're doing a bog-free car, you don't have to go to that sort of effort. But that curve is at about 95%, probably even 97%. So yeah, pretty happy the rest of that. But yeah, turned out all right, nice and shiny. So yeah, there you go. That's a curved piece with yeah, there you go. Yeah. Outro, whatever. Thanks for watching if you are. Laters. perfect, but realistically, unless you're doing a bog-free car, you don't have to go to that sort of effort. But that curve is at about 95%, probably even 97%. So yeah, pretty happy that